Okay, so in building a niche on Etsy, the first thing you have to have is an idea or a need. In my case, I was trained as a harpist and I was looking to get back into playing weddings, so I needed a formal dress. It needed to be floor length and I wanted it to have sleeves. And I couldn't find anything for under about $500, and I said, wait a second. And so I looked around. I had the need. I needed a modest formal dress and I didn't want to pay $500. So I did market research to see if anybody else was selling them at a price point that I considered reasonable. And I think that's the most important thing, is to assess whether your idea has a built-in market or if you can create one. For example, mine had a built-in market. There were people like me who wanted modest attire at a reasonable price. But there are some ideas where you can create your own market. For example, the iPhone. There wasn't a market for that 50 years ago. There wasn't a built-in consumer base. But it's one of the best-selling products of all time. So if you have a great idea but don't know necessarily who's going to want to buy it, don't let that stop you. Great ideas rise to the top. So in assessing the market demand for your product, one of the main things I did was look at our competitors, and I asked what they were doing right and what they were doing wrong. And for me, the main thing they were doing wrong was they were just too expensive. And for me, one of my other gripes was that in wedding and formal attire, they generally run 2 sizes too small, and nobody wants to buy up 2 sizes. So that was another thing I didn't like. I'm also taller, and I didn't want to buy a dress that was going to be too short. So the sizing was an issue there, and I'm also pretty creative, so I didn't like the idea that if I liked this style that I couldn't order it in any color I wanted. So I wanted that flexibility of design. And those last 2 things are things that we've incorporated. Probably 90% of our dresses are custom made to girls' measurements, and we offer them in dozens of colors. But our real niche is our price point. So that's how we've created our business niche, is filling the demand between $500 dresses and cheap knockoffs from China, basically. And in building your business, I think it's perfectly okay to abandon ideas. There are lots of other ideas I've had, but they haven't germinated, and so I've thrown them away. And there's nothing wrong with that too. And there's nothing wrong with reworking your initial idea. So initially we didn't offer custom sizes. We were only focusing on the price point, but that's something we adapted pretty quickly. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't be afraid to be flexible and to grow, and don't get locked into your initial idea if things that aren't gelling in real life. And I think adaptability is one of the key things in business that makes people successful. So I'm assuming most of you have an idea or a desire to grow in business or create. And I think for creative types, one of the hardest things is crunching the numbers and taking a long look at how much do the materials cost, how much am I paying in, say, Etsy fees or in shipping or in photography or for website hosting. What is my cost? And then I think even harder than that is factoring in what our time is worth. I think one of the biggest mistakes I made was not building in a salary or wages for myself, because most small businesses start out small, where you're doing it part-time. I worked a lot of other part-time jobs to balance things out, and at a certain point, I think we all hope that our small business will grow large enough that it's a full-time business, and at that point you have to be able to economically sustain yourself. So I think remembering to pay yourself from day one is important, because without that you can't make that leap from small business to your livelihood. And also have fun. I think it's easy to be overwhelmed and in my case stressed out, but if you can't have fun being creative and working for yourself, I don't know what the point is. And then also I would encourage you to be realistic in your goals. Like I said, our first year we didn't sell anything, and that sounds super depressing, and it was, but this prom season we're so busy that I really wish people would just leave me alone for like 5 minutes. So this is my vacation. We've done 2 photo shoots in the past 3 weeks, so the day before I came out here I was editing photos for about 6 hours and writing descriptions and putting them on the website. And then when I get back we have another photo shoot on Wednesday or Thursday. So it picks up when you least expect it. So you have your idea, you've crunched the numbers. The next thing that I consider most important is branding. There are a lot of products out there, and I've taken the time to step back and look and really pay attention to what photos catch my eye, what makes me like something on Instagram or share it on Facebook or social media or pin it on Pinterest. And I think that comes down to branding. And branding is essentially how you present your product, how you make your customers feel, what your company evokes. For us, a cornerstone of our branding is our color palette and also our logo. So our color palette is basically light pink and white, pretty girly, and then our logo incorporates flowers and our initials. And I think that creates just a sense of femininity and simplicity, and it gives an idea of what we are as a business even before people look at our products. But I think presentation and photography are so important, and so really taking the time initially to step back and say, what do I want my business to be? How do I want to make my customers feel? Asking questions like that will help build your brand, because there's so much competition for, say, t-shirts or prom dresses. So if your brand isn't doing something slightly different to make you stand out, I think it's really easy to get lost in the crowd. One of the big mistakes I made early on was complicating our presentation and just making things way more complicated than they had to be. I personally love shooting at night, shooting photographs, not guns. But it's harder with the lighting. It's more complicated, and we did a bunch of night shoots that just didn't have usable film. So we've switched to day shoots because they're easier and it's not a pain. So there is a balance between branding well and then also not torturing yourself, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Another thing that I think is really important in this day and age, especially with social media, is giving your brand a personality. My background is academic, it's not business or marketing, and that is reflected in Virtuous Prom. About a year ago, we started a scholarship fund for girls who were studying anthropology, psychology, sociology, or theology. And the essay prompt they have to write is how those disciplines help them make the world a better place. And it's super nerdy, and that's okay, because I'm super nerdy, and it's my business. And it's not everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay too. But I admire companies that have personality injected into them, and I think most consumers do too. One of my former models has started a modest company called Hadley and Me. Hadley's her daughter, and she started it after she had given birth and wanted some cute modest clothes, and money was tight. And I think it's great that her business has so much personality built into it, and I told her, Desi, don't ever lose that, because that sets her apart, that makes her different, and there is a woman behind that business, and you can see that in her Instagram and in her Facebook. And I think that makes it easier for customers to want to come back to your business and spend their money with you, because you're a person. You're not a corporation or a conglomerate or customer service. You're you. And so I think that helps develop brand loyalty too. Any questions so far? Okay. Another thing I would encourage you to do is avoid what I call brand dilution. For example, a lot of modest formal companies also sell strapless dresses. And we'll make a strapless dress, but we don't have that in our set collection, because our whole point is that we're modest. And so I've protected that sphere that we're in, because I feel like if we step outside of that, we become like every other formal company, and I don't want to compete in that sphere. We don't have millions of dollars in our advertising budget. So I want to make ourselves different and stand out in that way. And that's something that we won't compromise on.